Tremendous outing, tremendous show. Put that main event together effortlessly. I wish I could top what Dan just said. Did you get to hear him at all when he was complimenting you?
I heard him a little bit. He told me he was going to come out here and curse me out, so it was a little bit different, I think, than what he said he was going to do. But yeah, I heard a little bit of it. He's awesome.
And I'm going to piggyback off of his point. Definitely elevating the game, BJJ, getting that recognition. Is this all part of your legacy, even though it's still in its infancy, to just really get everybody's attention?
Yeah, I think the more eyes in the sport, the better it's going to be. The more people who do jiu-jitsu, the more celebrities who do jiu-jitsu, the more crossovers we have from jiu-jitsu into other sports, to wrestling, to bodybuilding, to whatever other sports we cross over into. I just think that overall, more eyes in the sport is always going to be good for the growth of jiu-jitsu, and I'm just happy to be at the forefront of that right now.
Excellent, man. And I'm sure people are talking about it online. Maybe you had that locker room talk, if you will, with the tap past the 2 minutes. Clearly. Yeah.
So I was looking at the timer, and all I remember is my teeth getting squeezed through my lip. And I clearly looked at the timer, and it hit 2 minutes. And I was just like, okay, well, maybe there's a lag between like what is on the screen and what the actual person is doing, calling time. I think what happened was people were like cheering, and I think the referee, Victor, maybe didn't hear the person yell time. So when it hit 2 minutes, I was like, okay, like maybe it's lagging. So I count to 5. So I counted like 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 5, and then the match still hadn't stopped, and I just feel my lip getting pushed, my tooth getting pushed through my lip. So I pointed at the timer, and then I tapped like the match has been over for 10 seconds, and then I knew the match was over, and I just wanted to ride it out a little bit longer just to make sure that there was no confusion with the time. But yeah, I knew it was going to be difficult to hold on to him and to finish him, in overtime, and. I knew that I was up on ride time going into the third round, and I knew that he had to get a submission, so I knew he was going to be gunning hard to get to a submission. But I've done many EBI rounds with him, and I kind of knew what to expect.
Did you expect it to go into the overtime? Were you ready for just pack a lunch? We're going to here for the long haul. This is the real deal.
So I was kind of curious to see what kind of game he was going to play, and in the first minute or two, I figured out that he was just going to play a really stally game. Like an ADCC was kind of coming at me because he knows that the negatives will, it's a points rule set. It's a lot more tactical, whereas here he knows that if he stalls, then he just goes to overtime, and then that's like his best chance. Yesterday, I asked in the rules meeting, what are the repercussions for greasing, and they said. You can't grease. I'm like, well, okay, what happens if someone gets caught greasing? They're like, nothing. I'm like, oh, so you can grease. So the second that the sweat started hitting his wrist, and I've trained with him many times, and he's often very slippery, and I was trying to get a hold of him, and the second he started sweating, and he was definitely lotioned, and the lotion came out, and I was like, yeah, but between the stalling and the fact that he was lotioned, there was just no way I was going to be able to hold on to him. Like even in 50-50, I had an Achilles grip, and he was almost slipping his leg out. And then in the overtime, that makes it so much harder to hold on to the hands defensively because the hands are so slippery. So the hands come out, and then they punch across your face, and you're like, oh shit, this is no good. So when the second he started sweating, like 2 minutes in, and then the fact that he was just hips back, head low, kind of not trying to pass or do anything, I knew that it was going to be a longer match, and it was going to be tough to get anything going with his explosivity and the amount of slipperiness that we had.
Touching on that, I might have apologize if I'm mistaken. There was a pop, and people were looking around. Was that him, or that's just coincidental that we heard that in?
Oh no, that was my ankle. I was trying to switch to a 50-50 heel hook, and I kind of wasn't respecting his mechanics because he doesn't really do leg locks that much. And I was trying to figure out how I could transition from an Achilles grip to an actual heel hook without losing the leg because it was so slippery. And while I was doing that, he put on a toe hold. And I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And then he just ripped it as hard as he could, and my leg broke. And I was like, oh, well, I guess that's broke. May as well just let it go. And then he used that opportunity to pull the leg out. As I was trying to go for a heel hook, I switched to the Achilles, and the leg was just too slippery. It slipped right out. And then I was like, well, I just didn't hold on to his leg, got my own leg broken, and now we're back in neutral. This is perfect.
But luckily, it's nothing. I didn't see you in crutches or a brace. Nothing. You're good. Everything.
No, it's fine. I mean, I've had this ankle pop so many times that like basically it's hanging off my leg. Yeah, it'll be fine in a few days.
2 ankles, 1 ankles. How soon are you back on a mat grappling, making your star power even bigger?
So I gotta go to Boston tomorrow morning to film a new instructional, make some more money, and then I'm back for Christmas, and then right after Christmas I'm back on the 23rd, and then I'll train the 24th, 25th, and then right after Christmas I'll start my match for Felipe Pena, February 25th in California for Flow.
Excellent, sir. Thank you. Congrats on the win.
Thank you.
Hey, Gordon, how disappointing was it that you didn't get to fight Vinny?
It sucks. Vinny had to do a big weight cut, and they were telling me like, oh, we're going to make Vinny cut weight, like we wanted to have him in shape, and we wanted it to be a good match. And I knew Vinny was big at ADCC. It was like almost like between 270, I think, and 280. And I'm like, my first guy at ADCC was 285 pounds. I'm like, you don't have to make him cut weight. I compete against guys that big all the time. But they wanted him to cut weight, and then I think he posted on his story that he tried to cut like 20 pounds or over 20 pounds, 26 pounds I think it was, someone told me, in the last day, like 26 pounds of water, and then his kidney shut down and he had to go to the hospital. So I was like, oh man, like I kind of knew that was going to happen. Yeah, he's one of the guys to beat me at black belt, and I'm real excited to compete against him because he's like the last guy who I haven't beaten who's beaten me at black belt. So, hopefully he heals up and we can do, maybe a Fight Pass Invitational or, another event somewhere sometime in the future.
I mean, did you care that he was that heavy? Like, would you have grappled him as heavy as he was, or did you want him to cut weight?
No, I actually was against the weight cut because the UFC is like, oh, we want to have. We want him to come in shape and be able to do the full 20 minutes because Vinny fights at 205 like in MMA, so like a 280-pound Vinny may have not been able to go 20 minutes. So I think they just wanted to get him in shape, and I'm like, man, I don't know, 50 pounds is a lot of weight for Vinny to cut right now. So I was actually against the weight cut, and then I told him, I'm like, if Vinny can't make weight, just have him come in and like whatever weight he's at, and I'll fight him anyway. I don't want any money or any of his purse or anything. Just I'm not making weight. I'm only 223 pounds, I think, for the weigh-in. So I was like, just have him come in and we'll fight. I think, but Vinny was like so adamant about trying to make the weight. I think his ego got in the way, and then he just like almost killed himself, like trying to do the weight cut, and then ended up in the hospital, and then the match fell through. So yeah, I think sometime next year or whenever he's ready, I think we should do that match for sure.
For anybody that doesn't know, why the gray hair? Why the silver fox?
So people don't know me. They're like, man, this guy looks like he's 50 years old. I dye my hair gray because it pops out, so everyone talks about it. My hair is like dirty blonde, brown. But it's funny because after ADCC, I actually shaved all of my head and my beard off, and no one knew who I was. I was like incognito. I was like in a frame shop because I had like fan mail, and I was in a frame shop, and I had all these pictures of me from ADCC like lying on the table. And some guy walks in and he goes, oh man, is that Gordon Ryan? And I was wearing like my glasses and my hat, and I had no beard. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, man, I don't do jiu-jitsu, but my brother-in-law, he sends me pictures and videos all the time about that guy. I have no idea what he's talking about, but he just talks about him all the time. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, that's me with like gray hair and a beard. And he like looks confused, and then he looks at me and he looks back. He's like, is that you? And I'm like, yeah, it's me. I just shaved my beard. He's like, oh my God, I can't believe it. So I was like incognito a lot of the time when I was like traveling, and everyone like was like kind of looking at me because they saw the tattoos and the size, but they didn't see the hair, so they were kind of trying to figure it out. But yeah, it's back now, and I'm back in my first form with the haircut.
So is gray going to be the color going forward, or are you going to like do some like wild like purple rainbow?
I think I'm going to keep it this color. Maybe I would go like pink or something crazy, but then I think I'm going to be made fun of for being a liberal. I think we got to stay with gray for this one. But it pops out, and it's like kind of neutral, and everyone makes fun of me for being 50 years old, so we can have some fun with it.
What matches get you excited in the future? Like, there's all these up and comers. Like, is there someone that like really like I want to fight that guy?
Any match that they're going to pay me the most amount of money for would be preferable. But anybody. I've always been a guy who's open to compete against anyone who thinks that they can compete against me. Whether a blue belt calls me out, whether a black belt world champion calls me out, it doesn't make a difference. I'm game to fight anybody. there was no real reason for me to compete against Nicky Rod tonight. Like, I just submitted him. He's a brown belt. I just submitted him a few months ago. But anyone they put in front of me, I want to compete against. So there's no one that really sticks out. Any of the guys that, obviously Vinny, any of the guys who I haven't submitted at black belt, Victor Hugo would be another good one because he was the only guy I didn't submit this year at ADCC. Lucas Barboza, I fought him twice. I didn't submit him. So right now, I've pretty much beaten everyone. I'm just trying to run back and submit the guys who I haven't submitted at black belt, who are still actively competing. So those guys are on the list, but I mean, really anyone. If anyone that they're going to pay me for, I'll compete against.
And people throw your name with the Michael Jordans, the Floyd Mayweathers, the Tiger Woods, the greatest of all time. Like, do you see yourself as the greatest of all time?
Nogi, yeah. I mean, if you actually do like a statistical breakdown on like me and the other top 5 guys who are considered to be the greatest Nogi competitors of all time, it's like not even a close comparison. It's like a 10-to-1 thing where like I have like 4 times the amount of submissions as they do Nogi matches. Like, it's just not even fair. So I've done this before, like before ADCC, and it like wasn't even close. And people talk about medals and stuff like that and Gi and Nogi, but if you actually look at the stats just for Nogi grappling, you'd actually be shocked on how illuminating it is. That actually kind of illuminates the fact that I'm just by far the greatest Nogi competitor of all time.
Congrats and happy holidays.
Thank you. You too.
Back here real quick. Alex just mentioned Michael Jordan, and when Mason was up there, he mentioned how he doesn't do like the trash talk, but he said you're like a bully when it comes to the trash talk. So is that just something that amps you up? Because if you already know that you're the greatest, you got to give yourself that extra edge when it comes to just talking some trash?
The thing with me is I don't forget. So like, if a competitor comes on like a thread like 4 years ago, and they're like, man, Gordon really didn't look that good, I'm going to remember that. So like then just for like the rest of your career, I'm going to attack you. Like, I don't forget anything. So if someone ever opens their mouth, regardless of what it is, if it can even be looked at as an attack, I'm just going to viciously like they shoot a bullet and I just drop a nuke, and just keep dropping nuclear bombs every single time I can. Like Patrick Gaudio lost today, and I saved the screenshot of him saying that he was going to be my first, or that he was going to hand me my first loss at Who's Number One from like 4 months ago. And the second that he lost, before he was even off the mat, I posted it on Instagram, and I just said that aged well. So like stuff like that is like stuff that I do all the time, and fans just love it. So really, the shit talk for me, it's just obviously it's the creative draw. But a lot of it is to create a draw. But if people don't talk shit about me, then I won't go back at them. I don't just talk shit for no reason. But a lot of these athletes at one point or another have said stuff about me, and then people see me attacking them all the time, and the new fans are like, I don't know why he's attacking this guy. And it's like, well, because 4 years ago he said that I sucked, and now I'm just attacking him constantly for the rest of his career. So anyone you ever see me attacking, they deserve it. I promise.
All right, that's the best answer I could get.
I feel bad because I feel like I would be the guy in the frame shop. If you didn't have your hair and your beard, I guarantee I wouldn't recognize you. We a lot of times we'll hear from fighters in the UFC when a last-minute opponent drops out. It really throws off the game, whether it be a striker, and all of a sudden now they get a grappler. How does that affect you here when Vinny had to drop off so close? Does that change anything? Did that throw off anything of your preparation for this event?
Well, for me, I knew that there was a lot higher likelihood of the match going to overtime with Nicky Rod, because I knew Nicky Rod was going to stall a lot more than Vinny and be harder to deal with, just in the stalling aspect. And in addition, for the longest time, I don't know why I thought that me and Vinny was like a 20-minute match with like a ref's decision or like a sub or draw. And then like 2 weeks before the match, I realized that it was EBI overtime. I like confirmed with Techi, and I asked him, and he's like, "Oh no, it's EBI overtime." So I was like, "Oh shit, I better start practicing overtime rules." And then we changed it to Nicky, and all the stuff that I was drilling for Vinny, like Nicky Rod doesn't do flying submissions. I wasn't going to wrestle with him. Vinny doesn't do body locks, guard passing. So they're just two completely stylistically different grapplers. But at the same time, I can adapt better than anybody else in the world to any kind of game plan. And Nicky Rod is a person I've trained with for years, and I know what his game is like. So when they asked him and he accepted. I was like, okay, no problem. Which was weird because I asked him. He was like one of the first guys they asked months ago to compete against me, and he said no. And then they asked him again yesterday, and he said yeah. So, I think we know each other's game. He knows my game. I know his game, and he knows that if he actually engages with me, it favors me. So he was kind of negative stally, looking to get to overtime, and that's fine. I'm comfortable in overtime. I've done many overtime rounds with him and with other people. So it definitely didn't throw me off, but it was definitely a little bump in the road.
And just in terms, like you said, practicing in lots of overtime rounds, what is the preparation? When you're knowing that you're going to be in there for 20 minutes straight, what does that translate to in the training leading up to this? I mean, was just multiple rounds of 20 minutes? I mean, what sort of preparation did you have to do for this?
So we usually do our normal positional rounds, and then we do like a 20-minute long round at the end. Like after we do like probably 25 minutes of rolling, we do one 20-minute long round, and then we do EBI overtime rounds after that. So whenever it's an EBI camp, we focus heavily on submissions, and then we do a lot of armbar and back rounds as well to prepare.
And earlier you mentioned like lotion or greasing, whether it's intentional or unintentional. For a lot of guys out there, is that something that happens often in the sport? Is there a problem in the sport that that doesn't get known enough, or is it just on occasion it'll pop up?
Yeah, it's a big problem in jiu-jitsu because, especially with me, because people don't really gauge themselves on how good they are anymore by whether or not you can beat me. They just gauge themselves on how long they can last, or can they not get submitted. So their whole goal is just not to get submitted. And one of the best ways to do that is with grease, because the less friction you have, the more pushing grips you have to use. And my whole thing is to pull guys onto me to actually go into submissions. Like when I'm in bottom position, you want to elevate the guy to pull on, to come on top of you and get underneath the center of gravity and go into submissions. So the more friction you have, the more pulling grips you can use. But when you lose friction, you have to push more. And the pushing grips are kind of counterintuitive from bottom position because I'm trying to get a hold of the guy. So the grease makes a huge, huge difference. Like we did a grease test one time when we were in Puerto Rico, and it's like a 20-fold difference from like bare skin with grease to like a long sleeve rash guard versus grease. So it makes a big, big difference, and it is a big problem. That's why in the future Fight Pass Invitationals, we have to have some kind of a repercussion for greasing, like whether you dock pay or whether you get extra overtime, riding time, or just making the athletes wear long sleeve rash guards and spats, I think would completely eliminate it almost. But something has to be done because, like I said, I asked at the rules meeting, like, oh, what if they grease? And they're just like, well, you can't. And I'm like, well, if there's no repercussions, then you can. That's like saying you can't take steroids, but there's no testing. Like, it's the same thing.
Yeah, I guess that was kind of answered my question. I was going to say, how do we combat this sort of thing? You think that's the best wing? Either make them have to wear the long sleeve rash guards? You think that might be something, the easiest fix to it? Or
yeah, I mean, because at the end of the day, you can dock pay, which would save the UFC and organizations a lot of money if they were docking pay, but. For a lot of athletes, just winning, especially against me, was worth a lot more than any amount of pay because they'll build their brand, and the brand, just a win off me will make a lot more money than whatever purse they're getting for the match. So they're not really concerned about the pay. But a long sleeve rash guard and spats will definitely solve it, because then the grease won't come through the long sleeve rash guard and spats. Like it's just material. So that'll definitely. Eddie Bravo wanted to do this at one point. If not spats, at least long sleeve rash guard, so you can make some kind of upper body grips to pull a guy onto you.
Awesome. Congrats on the victory tonight.
Thank you.
One follow up. Speaking of talking trash, your old pal Dillon Danis is boxing a YouTuber, and I just wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I mean. How Dillon still? I mean, he's a master at staying relevant without actually doing anything. It's incredible. But yeah, I mean, I've offered him like 10-1 odds. I've offered him to compete against Luke for like 2-1 odds. I mean, I've offered him every kind of match, and he'll like post like the 2017 ADCC match every now and then. He'd be like, "See, I beat the best guy in the world." But yeah, I mean, hopefully he's getting paid. He actually randomly messages me on Instagram all the time at like 2 a.m. He's got to be like all like drunk or whatever. And he sent like a clip the other day of Chael Sonnen, like Dillon Danis is the real deal. He went toe to toe with Gordon in 2017, and Gordon won the world championships, like out of nowhere, completely unsolicited. And I'm like, oh great. I'm like, great, Dillon. I'm like, I hope you're getting paid for this. And he's like, I run the game, kid. Don't forget this. And I'm like, okay, well. if it doesn't work out and you don't make that much money, I'm like, I have tons of cars. You can clean those for me. And I have like 5 cars to clean. And if you want to clean those, I'll give you like $30 a week or something, for those. And he never responded. Hopefully he's making a lot of money. Hopefully, he doesn't end up homeless and, he manages to stay relevant. But it's hard to stay relevant when you don't compete.